Good afternoon or good evening to those who are in Taiwan, and welcome to this webinar on November 16, which happens to be the International Day for Tolerance. In introducing this webinar, one of those calling the attention on the Taijimen case of tax injustice, I would like to remember an infamous historical case in which the words tolerance and tax were put together. In fact, not to promote tolerance, but to promote intolerance. It is the story of the tolerance tax imposed on the Jews of Hungary between 1749 and 1846. In Europe, Jews had been expelled from several countries, but not from the Austrian Empire, which regarded itself as a multi-ethnic and multi-religious imperial power, and adopted an attitude of comparative tolerance. However, anti-Semitism was traditionally strong in Hungary, and in fact, we see relics of them to this very day. And many agitated to have the Jews expelled from the Kingdom of Hungary, which was a semi-autonomous part of the Austrian Empire. And Empress Maria Theresa of Austria came out in 1746, which what looked to her as a bright idea. Jews will not be expelled from Hungary, but to stay there and practice their religion freely, they had to pay from 1749 what the Express called in Latin taxa tolerantialis, and in German Toleranzgebühr, or tolerance tax. Those hostile to the Jews in Hungary should tolerate their presence, but will know that the Jews were paying for it a special tax benefiting the local non-Jews. The idea was, of course, morally obnoxious. It implied that tolerance can be bought and sold, and that to be tolerated, a religious minority had to pay a special tax. It is true that religious minorities paid higher taxes than Muslims in the Ottoman Empire, but these had always been criticized and condemned by Christians. It is worth noting that the measure was introduced by Maria Theresa, an empress normally associated with progressive Enlightenment philosophy. But in fact, Enlightenment had a dark side, and its hostility to Christianity extended to its ancestor, Judaism. The most famous Enlightenment philosopher and correspondent and inspirer of Maria Theresa, Voltaire, has been described by an historian as an obsessive anti-Semite. Maria Theresa herself, who had expelled Jews from Prague in 1744, has been called by a scholar perhaps the most anti-Jewish monarch of her day, and one who detested Jews. To make things worse, the tolerance tax, so-called, paid by Jews in Hungary had to reach a quota, that was constantly increased until Emperor Ferdinand I cancelled the tax in 1846. However, even after that date, Jews in Hungary still suffered for several years as unpaid taxes for the previous years continued to be collected. And even the army was mobilized to compel Jewish tax evaders to pay. While some may argue that tolerance tax was better than expulsion, it was a clear case of injustice. A religious minority was told that to be tolerated, it had to accept an unjust tax, pay, and remain silent. There is somebody who should be muted because there is a voice in the background. The historical contexts are very much different, but the similarities with the Taijimen case are easy to detect. After prosecutor Ho Huanzhen attempt to eradicate and destroy Taijimen failed, they were told that they can continue to exist in Taiwan, but should pay unjust and illegal tax bills. In practice, like the Jews in Hungary under Maria Theresa, Taijimen's Shifu, Grandmaster, and Dizi, disciples, were told they should pay a tolerance tax. Tolerance was not granted to them as a right, they were asked to pay for it. The Jewish tolerance tax has become, in European history, a synonym of discrimination and shame. It is regarded as something for which, and not only for this, of course, but for many other incidents as well, something for which we need, as Europeans, to apologize to the Jews. And I sincerely hope, and I'm sure all of you will hope today, that just as it happened to the tolerance tax, one day Taiwan will apologize to Taijimen for making tolerance of them contingent to them accepting unjust tax bills. And we are here to work for those results to be one day achieved. That was just some historical comments to put things in context. And I understand that before introducing the speakers of the first session, we will watch a video with remarks from the Shifu of Taijimen, Dr. Hong Dao-tse.
Distinguished guests, dear friends from around the world, ladies and gentlemen, good day. The preamble of the United Nations Charter, established in 1945, states, "Practice tolerance and live together in peace with one another as good neighbors." On November 16, 1995, UNESCO adopted the Declaration of Principles on Tolerance, emphasizing that tolerance is not only a moral responsibility, but also a political and legal necessity for individuals, groups, and countries. International Day for Tolerance on November 16th every year aims to remind the public to be aware of the dangers caused by intolerance. The hatred and intolerance in the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict have caused significant harm to innocent people, which is truly heartbreaking. Countries around the world are concerned that the conflict in the region will further escalate, leading to a global crisis. The occurrence of natural and man-made disasters is due to the conflicts arising from the imbalance between people and all beings, and between people and the environment. Conflicts arise from incompatible goals, perceptions, or emotions between any two of the above, leading to opposing or inconsistent interactions. Before conflicts arise, we need to use tolerance to accommodate opposition and resolve disputes. The Declaration of Principles on Tolerance states that tolerance is the respect, acceptance, and the appreciation of different cultures, ways of expressing thoughts, and ways of behaving. But it does not mean tolerating social injustice or abandoning one's position. It is a positive and constructive attitude towards handling diversity and differences. In the global village, each person is part of the community of life on Earth and has the responsibility to protect the sustainable Earth. However, how can we establish tolerance education and a culture of peace? The purpose of establishing tolerance education is to diminish the adverse impact of fear and exclusionary thinking and behavior, helping people enhance their ability to make independent judgments, critical thinking, and moral reasoning. Countries around the world have rich and diverse religions, languages, cultures, and ethnicities, which are precious assets that contribute to the vigorous development of global vitality. Tolerance is the recognition of others' rights and freedoms, the acknowledgement of ideals and cultures from around the world, and taking responsibility not only for oneself, but also for others. Former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan once delivered a speech on International Day for Tolerance, advocating replacing indifference and contempt with care, and replacing blindness, ignorance, and discrimination with understanding. Tolerance comes from genuine understanding and selfless love. It brings peace and requires the guidance of conscience. The monumental task of tolerance education and the culture of peace requires everyone's heartfelt love for the earth, cherishing every moment, continuously nurturing, learning, and expanding the positive effects of actions led by conscience. Through the collective efforts and sincere atonement of individuals, families, societies, nations, and all of humanity, acting with a good conscience can form a protective shield that maintains peace and sustainability, preventing natural and man-made disasters from destroying our only home, Earth. Since 2000, I and members of 4PAL have been promoting the culture of peace through love and conscience around the world. We firmly believe that the triangular balance of conscience, culture, and education will create a stable and balanced path for the sustainable development of humanity. Those who uphold tolerance with conscience will not only defend freedom and human rights, but also bravely dedicate their lives for the welfare of all beings, bring peace to the world. At the Parliament of the World's Religions held in Chicago in August this year, the theme was A Call to Conscience, Defending Freedom and Human Rights. 4PAL held a global prayer for love and peace ceremony, inviting representatives from Catholicism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, Sikhism, and other religions to gather the energy of goodness and jointly bless the creatures of the world. Representatives of different religions and races held attitudes of respect, acceptance, appreciation, and learning towards the unique cultures, beliefs, thoughts, and expressions from around the world, collectively calling on people to calm their minds daily, follow the call of conscience, and practice kindness every day. The participants witnessed the embodiment of tolerance education and a culture of peace, and call on people to practice the principles of International Day for Tolerance. At this critical moment for the survival of Earth and its inhabitants, I sincerely invite everyone to spend a minute each day praying for all living beings on Earth, to act according to conscience, and to practice tolerance with selfless love for others, realizing a harmonious world where humanity and nature coexist peacefully. Praying, may conscience prevail and goodness spread among humanity, eliminating suffering and ensuring everlasting peace. With united will, let us change the world for the better. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to Dr. Hong for his usual words of wisdom. And I will now introduce the first speaker of the first session, Dr. Carolina Maria Koska, researcher in esotericism and new religious movements at the Center for Comparative Studies and Civilization at Jagiellonian University in Poland. So, Carolina, thank you for being with us. We understand you are suffering or recovering from a cold, and we hope you will be able to speak nonetheless. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Massimo. Good afternoon and good evening to everyone, and thank you for having me today on this special occasion. November 16 marks the International Day for Tolerance, as designated by the United Nations in 1996. This day is dedicated to encouraging mutual understanding among various cultures and communities. Its goal is to nurture respect, dialogue, and collaboration among diverse cultures and religions in order to create a more tolerant global society. It serves as a reminder to cherish diversity and advocate for acceptance, comprehension, and respect towards every individual, irrespective of their backgrounds, beliefs, or traditions. At the very core of the establishing of the UN Day lays the persuasion that a lack of tolerance breeds violence, conflicts, and wars. This reality is particularly stark today amidst catastrophic ongoing wars. This day of observance was announced in the Article 6 of the Declaration of the Principles on Tolerance, proclaimed and signed by the member states of UNESCO on November 16, 1995. It stands as a pivotal document emphasizing the multifaceted aspects of tolerance. It delves into various dimensions of tolerance, extending from the state level to social realms and the pivotal role of education, which was also mentioned by Dr. Hong in the video today. It states, education is the most effective means of preventing intolerance. The first step in tolerance education is to teach people what their shared rights and freedoms are, so that they may be respected, and to promote the will to protect those of others. Its Declaration of Principles of Tolerance, point 4.1. As the Secretary General of the UN in 2015, Ban Ki-moon wrote, "People are more connected, but this does not mean that there is more understanding." It is indeed true, and it emphasized how crucial the role of education is. Upon visiting the UNESCO Team Tolerance website, we noticed that the focus revolves around nurturing curiosity and questioning, especially in children. The platform provides resources and materials intended to spark curiosity, specifically to comprehend diversity and differences. This natural curiosity about what is different lays in the foundation for learning, embracing, and appreciating what was once unfamiliar. This tendency is particularly innate in children who approach new experiences without prejudice or bias, since everything is a new discovery for them. Why do some adults not maintain the same level of curiosity? Sometimes the absence of curiosity, along with prejudices and bias, arises from the normative approaches to one's own and other cultures. Sometimes tolerance is also appreciated as a value, an idea, but when it comes to use it in one's life, it becomes somewhat less appealing. Excuse me. In Poland, we even have a joke about that. It goes, what's the most popular beer in Poland? It's tolerancyjny ale. Of course, ale is an English word used internationally for a type of beer. However, in Polish, ale means but. So the phrase can be read in two ways, as referring to ale as a type of beer, but also as tolerant but. And if someone says they are tolerant but something, it's pretty sure they just aren't. The same happens, unfortunately, not only with individuals, but with institutions and various well-established structures. There are many examples in the history where certain values seemed to be at the core of some institution, which was actually fighting other groups that were practicing the same values. When a group breaks away from an initially common organization, or it just appears near it, it highlights its weak points and hypocrisy and disrupts the comfortable status quo. One example within Christianity could be the Reformation. But what about tolerance? Does sharing tolerance as a core value guarantee that a group promoting it will be treated with tolerance and understanding? It doesn't seem so. Indeed, certain religious or spiritual groups face intolerance despite advocating principles of tolerance and equality. One notable example is the Baha'i faith. This faith emphasizes unity, equality among all people, and the eradication of prejudice. However, followers of this faith have encountered persecution in various parts of the world, including Iran, where the religion originated. Baha'is have endured discrimination, imprisonment, and even violence due to their beliefs in promoting unity and equality across all races, religions, and genders. Similarly, some sects within Islam, such as Ahmadiyya Muslim community, advocate for peace, tolerance, and interfaith dialogue. Yet they have faced persecution and discrimination in certain countries due to their interpretation of Islam differing from mainstream beliefs. Another example, but reaching far in the past, to the last quarter of the 19th century, is Theosophy. The Theosophical Society, established in 1875, based on its principles of unity and tolerance, tried to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color, which was pretty progressive for the time. The idea of a universal brotherhood was based on the ontological pantheism and the belief that every person must go through the same stages of evolution. If someone can incarnate as a person of different genders, races, and be raised in different religions in subsequent lives, there is no point in claiming that any condition is better or worse. Political activism. Theosophists played important roles in initiatives that contributed to the formation of the United Nations and UNESCO. They also significantly influenced the history of education and art. However, despite these contributions, Theosophy, characterized as an unusual blend of philosophies intertwined with the spiritual realm and conveyed through religious terminology, became an easy target for criticism. It evolved into something considered best kept out of public view. As a result, its influence was long overlooked and can only be now reconstructed by scholars from the perspective of intellectual history. And an example that is very significant today is Taijimen. Taijimen worldview and practices revolve around the promotion of inner harmony, mutual respect, and understanding among individuals and communities, contributing to a more tolerant and peaceful world. Yet, Taijimen as well faces intolerance, misunderstanding, stigmatizations, and tax harassment. Taijimen is known for its advocacy of tolerance and peace through various means, which include promotion of cultural understanding. It underlines the importance of cultural diversity and understanding among different communities. Taijimen Shifu, that is Grandmaster, and Dizi, meaning disciples, seek to bridge cultural gaps and promote harmony among people of various backgrounds. Taijimen advocates for spiritual development, emphasizing conscience, inner peace, and harmony. These values are seen as fundamental in fostering tolerance, understanding, and peaceful coexistence among individuals and societies. Taijimen's practice of Tai Chi and Qigong itself promotes balance, tranquility, and respect. It is not just a martial art, but also a form of moving meditation, encouraging mindfulness and fostering a sense of calmness and understanding. Taijimen advocates for human rights, social justice, and religious freedom. Its Shifu and Dizi actively participate in forums, discussions, and initiatives aimed at promoting tolerance and peace on a global scale. And last but not least, Taijimen engages in educational programs and workshops that emphasize the importance of tolerance, respect, and peaceful conflict resolution. It fits well in previously mentioned declarations of the Declaration of the Principles on Tolerance, which proclaims, education for tolerance should aim at countering influences that lead to fear and exclusion of others, and should help young people to develop capacities for independent judgment, critical thinking, and ethical reasoning. Let's hope that educating the world about Taijimen will also bring to them the tolerance they have missed for over 2 decades. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolina, for this very comprehensive overview of how tolerant groups are not necessarily tolerated, as proved by several historical examples. And now I would like to introduce the second speaker of the first session, Thierry Val, who is well known for his advocacy of the rights of Taijimen and other discriminated and persecuted religious minorities in his capacity as director of CAPLC, de coordination des associations et particulier pour la liberté de conscience. So Thierry, the floor is yours.
Thank you to giving me the floor, and thank you for the invitation for this special day of International Day for Tolerance. The International Day for Tolerance, celebrated each year on 16 November, reflects humanity's collective commitment to promoting understanding, respect, and acceptance across diverse cultures and societies. This day is an opportunity to reflect on the historical journey that led to the establishment of this crucial celebration. The principle of tolerance has a rich and varied history spanning several centuries, reflecting the changing attitudes of societies towards diversity and difference. Tolerance as a concept has its roots in philosophy, religion, and political thought, and its application and understanding adapt to changing social, cultural, and political landscapes. The following is an overview of the historical development of the principle of tolerance. The ancient philosophical roots. The idea of tolerance can be traced back to ancient Greek philosophy. Thinkers such as Socrates, Plato, Aristotle discussed the importance of open-mindedness, intellectual diversity, and acceptance of different perspectives. The Socratic dialogues, for example, is a form of discourse that encourages the exploration of ideas without hostility. The Enlightenment era, le siècle des Lumières. The Enlightenment period from the 17th and 18th centuries saw a surge in the promotion of reason, individual rights, and religious freedom. Thinkers such as John Locke argued in favor of religious tolerance, believing that governments should not impose a particular religion on citizens. His ideas influenced the development of constitutional principles and the separation of church and states. The Peace of Westphalia, 1688, sorry. The Peace of Westphalia, which ended the 30 Years' War in Europe, is often seen as a turning point in political tolerance. The treaties recognize the sovereignty of individual states, allowing them to determine their own religious practices. This marked a break with the era of religious persecution and contributed to the idea of coexistence between different religious communities. The American experience, the founding principles of the United States, enshrined in documents such as the Constitution and Bill of Rights, embody a commitment to tolerance. The First Amendment, in particular, guarantees freedom of religion, expression, and assembly, laying the foundation for a society that values pluralism and individual freedoms. The post-Second World War era of human rights. The atrocity of the Second World War led to a global reappraisal of human rights and tolerance. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1988, emphasized equality, non-discrimination, and the right to freedom of thought and religions, thus contributing to the international recognition of tolerance as a fundamental principle. Contemporary challenges and progress. Tolerance remains a dynamic and evolving principle. Contemporary challenges include the issue of race, gender, sexual orientation, and religious diversity, underlie the continuing needs for societies to promote tolerance and inclusion. Movement for social justice and equality underline the importance of accepting differences and fostering understanding. Religious and spiritual contributions. Many religious and spiritual traditions have played an important role in shaping the principle of tolerance. For example, various teachings from Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam emphasize compassion, understanding, and respect for others. The Golden Rule, which advises treating others as you would like to be treated, is a common thread running through many religious doctrines and contributes to the ethic of tolerance. I would like to end my presentation by giving you an example of Dr. Hong's contribution to peace and tolerance. Since 1966, Dr. Hong's spiritual teachings have helped to spread the idea of tolerance, which promotes peace and harmony. In 1999, Dr. Hong and his organization, Federation of World Peace and Love, launched a campaign for peace and conscience. For over 20 years, Dr. Hong and Dizzy have visited more than 100 countries and met with the world's greatest leaders to promote peace, love, and conscience. In 2019, their efforts will be rewarded by the 25 July resolution establishing 5 April as International Day of Conscience. The resolution in point 2 declares, emphasizes that the International Day of Conscience constitutes a means of regularly mobilizing the effort of the international community to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity in order to build a sustainable world of peace, solidarity, and harmony. The establishment of this International Day is a major contribution to peace and tolerance between peoples. This major step towards peace and tolerance must be recognized by the Taiwanese authorities, and they must put an end to the Taijimentex case and get back the Taijimen to their rights. Today more than ever, we need this tolerance that will lead us to peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thierry. I really thank you for having added to this time to the usual advocacy, a very thorough historical overview of tolerance. And with your speech, the first session is concluded, and I will pass the virtual podium to Willy Fautré, co-founder and director of our co-organizing entity, Human Rights Without Frontiers. And Willy will first introduce what I believe are either a consolidated video or two videos, and then present the speakers of the second session. So, Willy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Massimo. You're right. So, welcome to everybody who has joined us already from Taiwan and East Asia, as well as from Europe. So, good afternoon, good evening at the same time. And before starting the usual second important session about the voices of the dizzy, we will watch a video.
The Taiji men, back to the origin. Where did we come from? Where will we go from here? At the dawn of the universe, the Taiji spins, creating all things. Martial arts, music, dance, drama. A profound spiritual journey, awakening the conscience deep within, finding the solution for the soul.
The animals are very convincing. It was a lot of fun actually to watch, especially with the lions and dragons. Yeah, I thought the costumes were really well done. I thought the message was just very heartwarming, very, very wholesome overall. And I highly recommend it.
很惊讶的地方是它的那个服装，我刚刚看那个服装，每个都做的好细致哦，就是像尤其是在那个森林里面的时候啊，那些动物，然后还有舞龙舞狮，然后还有什么就是凤鸟那些都出来了，对，所以就是很丰富，然后你就会觉得哦意犹未尽，然后就一直看一直看。
让我好像回到说，想去探讨做生命的初衷，到底生命是什么意义这样子。
That all of the performers were volunteers, that they work regular jobs like a program manager in a tech company, and yet they're here on stage performing. It was just awesome.
They perform with love and they perform not to show themselves, but out of a willingness to convey a beautiful message to the audience. It took us back to the origin of the universe, how the yin and yang were existing and how the five forces of nature came into being.
It was something new to my eyes and my ears, something that I've never seen or experienced before, and it was an absolutely phenomenal experience.
So thank you for such a wonderful evening. It was just really fun. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful and fantastic. Those big shows that we attended when we were all in California quite recently. And now, before giving the floor to each of the Dizzy, a few words of introduction on my side about tolerance, about the International Day for Tolerance. Tolerance and intolerance are two faces of the same coin. The one is reflecting the light and warmth of love. The other one is hiding all sorts of turpitudes. Tolerance is not toleration, as it was said already by other speakers before me in one way or another. Toleration is no more than forbearance and the permission given by the adherents of a dominant worldview for other worldviews just to exist, even though the latter are looked on with disapproval as inferior, mistaken, or even harmful. There is no love in this attitude, only disdain towards others. Religious tolerance respects diversity and practices inclusiveness, while religious intolerance rejects diversity and practices exclusiveness. In 1993, the UN General Assembly proclaimed a year for tolerance at the initiative of UNESCO. And 2 years later, UNESCO marked the UN Year for Tolerance and the 125th anniversary of the birth of Mahatma Gandhi by creating a prize for the promotion of tolerance and nonviolence. And 1 year later, the UN General Assembly invited UN member states to observe the International Day for Tolerance on the 16th of November, today. Practicing and promoting tolerance worldwide is in the DNA of Taiji Men. And it is no surprise that this organization, rooted in esoteric Taoism, celebrates this UN International Day of Tolerance with the full engagement of its Dizzy. Despite 20 years of hardship and ongoing violations of their human rights and religious freedom, Taiji Men disciples continue to promote conscience, love, and peace around the world. Since it was formally chartered in 1996, the nature of Taiji Men teachings has remained unchanged. The DNA of the organization that emphasizes wisdom and martial arts altogether is being passed down from its Shifu, Dr. Hong, to his Dizzy from generation to generation. The organization has been dedicated to promoting a culture of love and peace, and as well as improving global citizens' physical, mental, and spiritual health. This is the message and the heritage of Dr. Hong, not only to his Dizzy, but also to the whole of humanity now and tomorrow. For years, decades and centuries, we have seen the cursed children of religious intolerance, spreading injustice and death around the world. Despite a huge movement of awakening of consciences across the physical borders of countries in diverse religions and cultures, the virus of intolerance persists and survives in all human societies of the world. Religious intolerance has many ugly faces. Taiwan has been a lively democracy since it emerged from the dark years of dictatorship, but its ghosts are still perpetuating various forms of intolerance. A new generation of Dizzy will have to take up the torch of fighting for their rights and their honor peacefully, legally, democratically, and in the spirit of Dr. Hong's teachings. And now we will give them the floor, starting with Peggy Xie, a researcher. The floor is yours, Peggy.
Hello everyone, my name is Peggy. I'm a Taiji Mendiz since I was a child. Before practice Qigong, I was poor healthy. Almost every few months, I will catch a small cold. And as a result, I have to take leave and stay at home. Unable to go to school. Since I started practice Qigong, and my health is better. And my immune system has significantly improved. Not only my body becomes stronger, and I have also participated in over 100 cultural performances, along with Shifu, Shimu, brothers and sisters. In Taijimen, Shifu not only taught me Qigong for physical well-being, but also allowed me to experience love in the process of participating in cultural performances. Through this, I gained insight into the splendor of life and the meaningful of existence. It enriched my life. In 2016, to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Taijimen Qigong Academy and to launch a world tour for cultural exchange, a group of brothers and sisters and I went to California for a cultural exhibition. The first performance in Los Angeles attracts thousands of people into the theater to watch the show together. And it was broadcast live in 15 places, attracting more than 50 media reports, including ABC News. Dr. Kenapa, Vice Mayor of Delhi City, said in his speech, Taijimen sent a message of peace and love that is needed in American community. It brings a lot of benefit to people and is inspiring to the audience. After seeing how people abroad value Taijimen culture and honor Shifu, it is heartbreaking to see the persecution of government in Taiwan. On July 13, 2007, the Supreme Court declared everyone innocent and free from taxation in the third thread of Taijimen case. This cried the name of Shifu, Shimu, brothers and sisters who had been unjustly detained, and they received the compensation from the government for the wrongful detention. However, the government's persecution of Taijimen has not ceased. They continue to use tax measures to politically purge Taijimen. In August 2020, they even illegally attained the land intended a self-cultivation center of Taijimen and seized it for government ownership. When I was a When I was in college, I went to the Taichung High Administrative Court to attend the Taijimen judgment. There are many brothers and sisters eagerly awaiting the outcome. Unfortunately, the judge declined that people's side had lost the case. Upon hearing this outcome, everyone around me was stunned. Some were furious, and others were in tears, sorrowfully. The red envelope was respectfully presented to our Shifu, were clear talks of respect, acknowledged by the Supreme Court as gift, exempt from tax according to the law. However, they were now deemed taxable. At that moment, I feel as if time had come to a standstill, overwhelmed by astonishment and unable to utter a word. Judge Lin Qiuhua, with an expressionless face, simply said to us, "Keep quiet." And he walked away. It was a profound shock for me. I couldn't argue with or seek an explanation from the judge. I feel utterly powerless, unable to do anything. Then, at a press conference after the victor was delivered, the presiding judge Lin Qiuhua admitted on the spot that because of his age, even if he had read the evidence in favor of the people, he would soon forget about it. What surprised me even more was the Judge Lin had tried 68 tax cases in the whole year, and 100% of them were ruled against the people. Are we seriously supposed to buy into the idea that just because someone getting on in years, they can conveniently forget all the evidence that could help the people? I mean, is this person really qualified to be a judge? I couldn't believe that such a thing could happen in Taiwan, a country with democracy and the rule of law. Over the years, our Shifu never gave up hope, adhering to the truth and refused any compromise with a miraculous force. Truth never changed his essence due to the passage of time or change in personnel. He not only insists with the victim of unjust taxation, but also dedicate himself to a vocation for taxpayers' rights. He urged everyone to act with conscience to save Taiwan and rescue more of these affected by unjust taxation wounds. We believe that as long as Taijimen remain unremitting, others can see the hope in the persistence. Even persecuted groups worldwide can draw strength from the Taijimen case. At today's International Day of Terrorist Forum, I am deeply grateful to my Shifu. Through the Taijimen case, he taught me the lifelong value of holding onto the importance of right and wrong. May all the people in the world listen to the call of conscience, face their true selves and the truth with courage. And after breaking through the darkness, they will truly be greeted by a bright future with unlimited hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, for reminding us the Supreme Court's decision more than 15 years ago, which cleared from any tax fraud suspicion the names of Dr. Hong and the disease, who had been unjustly detained for several months. The judiciary granting them financial compensation from the government for their wrongful imprisonment, a sort of apology that the Tax Bureau refused to abide by. Instead, Prosecutor Wang refused to recognize their innocence and went on persecuting them until the auction of the property. And you concluded your presentation by thanking your Shifu for teaching you in practice about the lifelong value of upholding the importance of distinguishing right from wrong. Thank you for your testimony. And now I will give the floor to Yu Xuan, project assistant. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yu Shen. I'm working as a project assistant in the college, and I've also been a Taiji Mandit since I was 6 years old. And all of my family members practice Qigong with our Shifu, Dr. Heng Daozi. And Dr. Heng teaches the philosophy and wisdom of life and guides us to cultivate moral character and purifies hearts while strengthening physical, mental, and spiritual health. And I'm an introverted person, and it makes me feel uneasy when I'm in crowd. But in Taijimen, I have many brothers and sisters, and I have many chances to share my thoughts, my lives, my experience, and what I learned to them. And all the brothers and sisters encouraged and provided me with much support. And this helped me adapt to naturally expressing myself like now. And I also had the opportunity to go to various countries with Dr. Heng to share love and peace. And this year, I visited New Orleans and California with Dr. Heng. And during these 2 trips, my task was to assist in ceremonial activities, such as guiding guests on and off the stage and handling the exchange of gifts or chassis the microphone and so on. And throughout this process, I learned to calm my mind and focus on the event and be ready to assist the guest as needed. And I also observed that every guest will smile and provided us a much positive feedback. Yeah, thank you. Like the former president of Trinidad and Tobago, Anthony Thomas, said, what Dr. Heng did at this academy is telling everyone, every child, every person that you are somebody, that your life matters. And the former president of Croatia, Ivo Josipovic, also said, I've never seen so many smiles, and I've never seen so many eyes full of love and optimism. But such an organization which was everyone respect, but the organization has been oppressed by the government for 27 years and has not yet been rehabilitated. At the end of 1996, both Kaohsiung and Hsinchu district prosecutor offices received false accusation at the same time, but then decided to close the case due to the lack of evidence. However, Prosecutor Ho Kwan-ren led hundreds of police officers who carried weapons to search all chapters of the Taijimen Qigong Academy. Then prosecutor accused Dr. Heng of violation of Tax Collection Act and tax evasion. Additionally, the prosecutor fabricated crimes of fraud and tax evasion. He falsely claimed that the same money was tuition income and business revenue and transferred the case to the National Taxation Bureau, called NTB. For the case referred by the prosecutor to the NTB failed to verify the nature and the amount of the income as official and pursuant to relevant administrative procedures. After criminal trial spanning 10 years and 3 months, the Supreme Court rendered a final not guilty decision. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Court of the Third Instance found all the defendants in the Taijiman case not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violations of tax codes. However, the NTB issued tax bills to Taijiman. Based on the false indictment of prosecutor Ho Kuan-ren, after Taijiman spent more than 20 years in the pursuit of administrative relief, the NTB corrected the amount in the tax bills for 5 of the 6 years to zero at the end of 2019, but left the 1992 tax bill uncorrected and referred it to compulsory enforcement. In late August 2020, disregarding due process, Taiwan's Administrative Enforcement Agency and NTB arbitrarily seized and auctioned properties that belonged to Dr. Hong Daozi, the founder and spiritual leader of the Taijiman. In retrospect, the fabricated Taijiman case is indeed a mirror that reflects legal and tax problems in Taiwan. The prosecutors' abuse of power to detain innocent people, the NTB's issuance of false tax bills to extract real tax money, the enforcement agency's illegal and forceful land auction, and so on. The chairman of the Chinese Association for Human Rights, Gao Shibo, said, "The Taijiman case highlights many unreasonable and outdated provisions of our tax laws. The human rights violations suffered by the Taijiman Shifu and the deeds since the beginning of the investigation cannot be redressed by any compensation, nor can it be treated as an isolated case. The redress of this case should be treated as a litmus test for taxpayer rights in Taiwan." 5 years ago, I visited Poland with my Shifu to promote love and peace. I saw many significant structures are still being rebuilt even though the World War II ended 70 years ago, and the people there are especially eager for love and peace. And we also went to Auschwitz concentration camp, and I saw a quote on there, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." I also expect the Taiwanese government to uphold a spirit of tolerance towards various forms of spiritual groups and have the courage to correct its mistakes and redress the Taijiman case and make Taiwan truly proud nation that values freedom and democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Yu Xuan. Despite your young age, you are already a Taijiman veteran, as you've been practicing Qigong since the age of 6, and congratulations for that. It is important to travel, as you said, for spreading the message of peace and love, because you also learn a lot from your contacts, people that you meet. We were together in California for the opening of the 2 academies, and there you met the former president of Croatia, who expressed his admiration about Taijiman when he said, "I've never seen so many smiles in my life. I've never seen so many eyes full of love and optimism." And through this statement, expressed his respect not only for Dr. Hong, but also for all and each of the Dizzy and you as well, of course. And now I will introduce the next Dizzy, Ziting Shu, a graduate student. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ziting Cho, a Taijiman Dizi who has been practicing for about 10 years. And I would like to share my experience with you on the occasion of International Day of Tolerance. I remember my parents brought me to Taijiman when I graduated from my elementary school. At that time, I didn't know what Qigong was and why I want to practice it. But I just saw my mom and dad practicing it happily, so I joined together. Taijimen was accomplished me through middle school, high school, college, and now even graduate school. And I have been very happy with the weekly training sessions.弟子from all walks of life and all ages in Taijimen sincerely care about each other and share their experience and insights unselfishly, so that I have gained something different every week. One of the things that stood out to me the most was the appeal of conscience made by my Shifu, Dr. Hong. He started the era of conscious movement, which calls for everyone to act according to their inner conscience. If everyone acts according to their conscience, both natural and man-made disaster can be minimized and even eliminated. There must be times in our lives when we are faced with choices of conscience. Take myself for an example. One of the tasks in my master's degree program was to publish a thesis, and I was expected to submit it for publication in one of the world's top conferences. Since I do software-related research, when submitting a paper, the reviewers do not have access to the code I write, nor do they have the opportunity to reproduce my result while reviewing the paper. So the reviewer can only rely on the details and a result presented in the paper to make their judgment. The reviewer can only in this case, there are few published papers which are found to be not as good as they can claim in the original paper when they are examined afterward. To me, this emphasizes the importance of acting with conscience. If we sincerely and true to our conscience, then not only will our own behavior be more ethical and truthful, but the whole world of research will be better because of the effort of each others. There is the belief of Taijimen has taught me, and it is deeply rooted in my heart. The December 19th fake case that happened in Taijimen is heavy and heartbreaking history. It was 1996 when the government was conducting a large-scale religious crackdown. Prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren, through false blackmail letters, abused his power to search and prosecute us illegally for tax evasion. What is even more outrageous is that not only did they fabricate the false evidence and false witness, but even the entire procedure was illegal. This incident happened before I was born, and I knew very little about this as a child until I became an adult. When I gradually understand the whole story, for the past 27 years, Taijimen Shifu and Dizi have, on one hand, carried out all kinds of legal remedies to demand that we be clear of all wrongdoing and that we be given back the seized land that was illegally enforced by the agency. And on the other hand, Shifu and Dizi have traveled to all 5 continents, spreading the culture of conscience and love and peace. Almost every year, we participate in cultural performances. In the past, we have participated in the National Day ceremony, the World University Games, the United Nations General Assembly, and have hosted many blessing conferences. Pasadena Civic Auditorium and San Jose Center for the Performing Arts and Pasadena, California, USA, in October this year. Each performance and participation required great effort from Shifu and Dizi, who spent every precious weekday practicing and rehearsing in order to present the most exquisite, Taiji culture. The purpose of this activity is to awaken people's inner conscious to show them the essence of Qigong martial arts culture and to inspire inner goodness. I have participated in our opening exhibition at the National Elite Club Wushu competition, and I am still touched by the memory. I was amazed at how demanding the Dizi were and how well they managed to keep track of the time. Despite their busy schedule, they managed to do their best in every detail of the show. Their dedication and commitment to excellence inspire me to learn more about Taiji men's culture. I have also brought this feeling and realization back to my academic career. During my student life, I took advantage of the opportunities to participating in various activities, both inside and outside the school, such as being the president of debate club and officer of the Mumbai Overseas Volunteer Corps, and even the exchange study in Germany. While I was busy with these activities, I also tried to maximize my time to focus on my study. When I was in high school, I took a placement test and scored 73 out of 75, which is not bad. Based on the past record, I should have been able to enter my gym department. However, fate gave me a big challenge when I eventually having no college to enter. The sadness and disbelief I felt at that time cannot be expressed in words, but I thought of the word and actions of my Shifu, especially the choose one thought over another the Shifu talks about. As the saying goes, if the mountain doesn't change, the road will change. If the person doesn't change, the mind will change. The wrongful case in Taijimen is the best example. We were wrongly accused by the government, but we choose to face it positively, presenting the evidence of government's violation of law and abuse of the power, and proposing a solution in accordance with the law. I decided to put the belief and courage back into myself and actively prepare for the examination and finally succeed in entering my gym college. All in all, Shifu has taught me a lot of Kung Fu, the most important of which is to uphold my conscience and be the master of my own. I am very grateful to be a Dizi in Taijimen. If it were not for Taijimen, I would not have become the person who I am now, who is able to do what I want to do. On the International Day of Tolerance, I also hope the government will implement the legal test reform and clear the name of Taijimen. We must admit our mistake and correct them before we can be forgiving, so the seed of conscience can really take root in Taiwan. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Ziting Shu. You said the disease from all walks of life and all ages in Taijimen sincerely care about each other. I think this is really the first step to a culture of compassion and tolerance that Dr. Hong has asked you to make. Another important teaching of Dr. Hong that you also integrated in your daily life is valid for all of us. And that's when you said, and I quote, if the mountain does not change, the road will change. And if the person does not change, the mind will change. End of the quote. Thank you again for your contribution to this day on tolerance. And now the floor is given to Albert Ma, an engineer.
Thank you. Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Albert, a 20 years experienced computer engineer, and I currently work in PC industry in Taipei. About a decade ago, I was stuck in a wheelchair for a while due to spine issues. After the surgery, I could stand and walk normally, but the several after effects seriously impact my quality of life. Post the surgery, I experienced intense pain throughout my body. I couldn't stand or sit for long, frequently had bouts of fever, and endure over 200 days of pain each year. I had to rely on painkillers or injections just to keep going to work. On weekends, fatigue would force me to sleep continuously, leaving me with no quality of life. It was 7 years of immense physical and mental suffering, and the medical expenses were substantial. 4 years before the outbreak of COVID-19, a college suggested the Taijimen Qigong might help me. So I went to Taijimen Qigong Academy Nangang to inquire about Qigong and joined the Taijimen Qigong Academy. I started learning from my Sifu, and through the consistent practice, quickly resolved my pain issues. With continuous training, my overall physical fitness improved, and I can now participate in some intense activities. Recently, while organizing old photos, I found pictures from a few months before I started to practice Qigong. The difference between then and now is astounding. After all these years, I am amazed at my own transformation and sincerely grateful to my college who recommended the Taijimen Qigong. Through years of practice, I've discovered that Qigong not only enhances physical fitness and recovery, but also bring about significant changes in my mind. It has given me inner peace and inner strength, becoming the driving force behind my positive actions. In October this year, I had the honor to be a volunteer for the opening events of the Taijimen Qigong Academy in Santa Clara and Pasadena, California. I played the role of a media photographer, covering a series of lectures where world leaders discussed issues of fairness, justice, love, and peace. It was a privilege to hear their talks, and even more a fortune to be behind the camera, witnessing their interviews. The words they spoke had the power to change the world. These leaders at that moment spoke as global citizens, sharing the inspiration and the energy they gained from the events organized by Taijimen Qigong Academy. After 11 days of events, as I was returning to Taiwan through San Francisco airport, an older American lady approached me for a chat. After learning about our activities, she expressed how moved she was by the efforts of a group of people trying to make the world a better place. Finally, she asked, "Are you happy with this journey?" I told her, "It's really tiring, but I'm inspired because people are inspired." Seeing her eyes well up, she kept saying, "You guys are amazing." At that moment, I knew that goodness is never alone. It always has neighbors. But can you believe it? This amazing group faced persecution by authorities in Taiwan 27 years ago, and continues to endure unfair treatment even now. Upon learning about the human rights persecution case involving Taijimen Qigong Academy, I couldn't accept it. So I joined the protests, hoping our efforts would lead to justice for the persecuted and the corrections of government mistakes. My biggest takeaway is realizing that the struggle of the victims can be peaceful too. Despite large crowds at some events, everything was orderly because we knew that our actions were making Taiwan better, helping Taiwan progress, comforting those who were harmed, and protecting the basic human rights for our future generations. I remember one time participation in a march in the front of the government office, where over 10,000 people stood in the rain for hours expressing our demands. No one from the government came to address our issues. The event continued from afternoon to night, but our passion didn't cool down because we knew we were striving for a better future. Today, Taijimen Qigong Academy has been vindicated, and anyone withstand false accusations. I believe more people silently endure due to fear governmental power, paying incorrect tax bills and the fees they shouldn't. We welcome people who suffering unfair treatment are now willing to come forward and share their stories. Not only help themselves, but also encourage people who made mistakes to stand up to face their conscience, restore the truth, and then fix the mistakes. Today is International Day for Tolerance. As we constantly acknowledge our mistakes, let's strive to be better than yesterday. Let's forgive those who genuinely repent for their past wrongs. Because as humans, we are meant to love each other. I also appeal to government of Taiwan to open its eyes and see the harm caused to people due to the incorrect tax bills. Only sincere repentance can earn true forgiveness. I love my country and the people, and I wish everyone around the world a safe and happy day. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert Ma, for sharing with us first your painful physical experience, which started 12 years ago, your spine problem, your operation, the wheelchair, your daily painkillers, your injections for 200 days, the loss of quality of life, but also the discovery of Taijimen, the slow recovery through the practice of Qigong, a real miracle. This experience also led you to a change in your heart and inspired you to give hope to other people, like that woman at the airport in Pasadena, where we both were at the end of those fantastic days that we lived all together. Thank you very much. And now the floor to the last speaker, Jill Wang, banking practitioner.
Hello, my name is Jill, and I come from Taiwan, and now I'm working in Hong Kong. Thanks for having me here today. Last month on October 10th, Taiwan celebrated its National Day. I watched the National Day celebration ceremony on YouTube after work, and it made me reminisce about we Taijimen being invited 10 times and participating in the ceremony 8 times. And I was honored to join 6 of them. During those years, starting from the July in the scorching summer, hundreds of our Taijimen Dizi began to prepare and practice for the performance. Our Shifu told us to be patriotic and to bless our country sincerely. So no matter under the heat or sometimes thunderstorms, me together with other Dizi always practiced joyfully and persistently. I remember at the 2010 celebration ceremony, when we finished our performance, President of Sao Tome and Principe stood up to express his compliments toward us with his thumbs up. Then he made a hugging gesture to us on stage to show how touched he was and to express his friendship with Taijimen. Not only in Taiwan, just like you saw in the video, our Shifu and Dizi have visited 103 countries around the world for cultural exchange at own cost, becoming international goodwill ambassadors. Taijimen was publicly praised by many world leaders, including 4 former and current presidents of Taiwan. In 1999, Taijimen was invited to one of the top 10 parades in the States, the Seattle Seafair Torchlight Parades. Our Shifu and more than 1,000 of Dizi flew to Seattle and brought unforgettable cultural performances to the city. I was very young at that time, so I didn't go together, but I was so impressed that in the broadcast, there are hundreds of thousands of people on both sides of the road shouting, "I love Taiwan, I love Taijimen." Every time when I think of this scene, especially now I'm working abroad, I feel especially proud to be a Taijimen Dizi. However, such an excellent group that has brought glory for Taiwan has been oppressed by Taiwan's public power since 1996. Even though the Supreme Court found Taijimen not guilty of fraud, tax evasion, or violation of tax codes in 2007, Taiwan National Taxation Bureau still continued to issue unjustified tax bills to Taijimen, and Taijimen's properties and assets were illegally frozen, including a land that was even auctioned and confiscated in August 2020. This kind of persecution has lasted for 27 years, which has not been resolved yet. The instigator of the Taijimen case is prosecutor Hou Kuan-ren, who abused his power and fabricated the false case, causing tens of thousands of Taijimen Dizi to be instantly discriminated, with some people losing their jobs, some people's family being broken, and some people even dying unjustly. In 2002, the Control Yuan investigated Hou Kuan-ren's behavior during the Taijimen case and concluded that he was guilty of 8 major violations of law. The Control Yuan then sent a notice to the Ministry of Justice seeking disciplinary actions against Hou Kuan-ren. However, the Ministry of Justice and other prosecution authorities shirked their responsibilities. So up to now, Hou Kuan-ren has never been sanctioned or punished. Moreover, he was promoted to deputy head of the Agency Against Corruption in 2018 and further promoted to the head of the Institute of Forensic Medicine last year. As you know that Hong Kong has gone through storms in past few years, from the umbrella movement in 2014 when I first came here, the anti-extradition bill protest in 2019, and to the enactment of Hong Kong national security law in 2020. Many of my friends and family in Taiwan worried about my safety here. But in fact, do you know that in Taiwan, there are also many cases of state violence? In September 2020, Ms. Huang, a 60-year-old housewife and a volunteer from the Legal and Tax Reform League, was arrested just because she held a sign questioning how much bonus a government official got from the illegal auction against Taijimen's against Taijimen's land. She was questioned and detained by the police and even transferred to the prosecutor's office, being interrogated for nearly 8 hours. She was not released until 1 a.m., and the prosecutor even imposed a limitation on her residence. The arrest caused immense mental and physical distress for Ms. Huang. After hours of interrogation, she fainted and was sent to the hospital, being diagnosed with acute stress disorder. 6 months later, another prosecutor clearly stated that Ms. Huang's behavior was within the scope of constitutionally protected freedom of expression, and the content of the sign she held was a matter of public comment. This showed how ridiculous the arrest was. That time I was in Hong Kong, and I was very saddened when I saw this news. Why is it that Taiwan citizens are deprived of freedom and right to stand on the street, just expressing their demands quietly and rationally? Ms. Huang was persecuted innocently, but no one has been held accountable. The public power is conferred by the citizens, but why no one should be legally responsible when the government makes mistakes? Do we have no choice but to tolerate it? The words democratic Taiwan has become Taiwan's brand. Our President Tsai Ing-wen also emphasized it in her last National Day address before she steps down as the first female president of Taiwan. However, such democracy, which is not easy to be achieved, needs to be cherished and safeguarded by all of us. Today is the International Day for Tolerance. The United Nations also calls for mutual respect and appreciation among different ethnic groups and cultures. In the Declaration of Principles on Tolerance, it is also emphasized that tolerance is neither indulgence nor indifference. It is my sincere hope that every global citizen should stand up to fight against injustice and defend the human rights. Of course, if the perpetrator is a public authority, we should be brave to speak out. We should supervise the government to conduct a thorough review and reform in order to promote the betterment of the society. This is all I want to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill Wang, for first reminding us about the state violence in Hong Kong, sorry, where you studied when you were younger, and about the umbrella movement in 2014, about the anti-extradition bill protest in 2019, and the enactment of Hong Kong national security law in 2020. Really sorry. But as you said, there are other forms of violence, more insidious, like the protest in 2020 of Mrs. Wang, a 60-year-old housewife and a volunteer from the Legal and Tax Reform League. She was arrested just because she held a sign questioning how much bonus a government official got from the illegal auction of Taiwan's Administrative Enforcement Agency and National Taxation Bureau against the land owned by Taijimen. Thank you very much. And I will now give the floor to Marco Respinti for the last part of this webinar, but I think there will be another video as well. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Willie. And so you can rush a little bit quietly. And it is my occasion to thank the organizer of this series of webinar and today's webinar, CESNUR, Center for Studies on New Religions and Human Rights Without Frontier, and of course all the scholars who presented papers, as well as Dizzy, who brought, as usual, their very, very precious tolerance. With my task now to try to some sort of conclusion, cross-cutting a little bit some of the topics that have been already mentioned, and trying to give my own final perspective, if I may, on this very important topic, on this very important day of observance. In fact, today, the United Nations asks us to revere the value of tolerance. As it is our custom, we do it by reflecting on what tolerance means in the Taijimen case. And then begin by considering how vast and grand is the goal that inspired the creation of the United Nations in 1945. Securing lasting peace among the nations by smoothing conflicts and making mutual understanding easier. It enshrines the ideal unification of all humankind and immediately calls Taijimen in, since universal peace through mutual understanding is the high ideal of the movement led by Dr. Hong Tao-tse. He also promotes this ideal through his Federation of World Peace and Love, FOPOL. It is then safe to say that the UN and Taijimen ultimately share the same objective. Of course, the proximate cause that brought the UN project forth was the unprecedented catastrophe of two world wars. Human beings had already known devastating conflicts, but nothing comparable in terms of devastation and human toll. Yet the foundation of the UN had also a remote cause. It lied in the cultural milieu of the philosophical progeny of the Enlightenment. It had a recognizable intellectual antecedent in the reflections penned by German philosopher Immanuel Kant in his 1795 book Zum ewigen Frieden, ein philosophischer Entwurf, known in English as Perpetual Peace, a philosophical sketch, which was aptly discussed in a previous webinar of this series on the Teichmann case. Kant's proposal may be similarly read as a reaction to another cataclysm, the French Revolution, whose human, social, and cultural costs can be hardly underestimated. They continue to be analyzed by historians and experts, from René Cedillo's 1986 book Le Coût de la Révolution Française, or The Cost of the French Revolution, to the studies authored by Jean Dumont, to the 2008 Le Livre Noir de la Révolution Française, or The Black Book of the French Revolution, a collection of essays by some of the best scholars on the subject. But when Kant published his book on perpetual peace, the French Revolution was just halfway. Several incidents of lasting consequences were yet to happen. Chiefly among them were the attempt to export the revolution outside France by military means, the establishment of new universal legal criteria, an agreement between the Catholic Church and France that had long-lasting cultural consequences, and the birth of the modern state, more precisely, the end of its long period of gestation. All this transformed the 1789 revolution in France into a European and soon international event with enduring and long-term effects. One may guess that Kant had already enough of the disgusting spectacle of revolutionary France, to borrow a definition from an article of denunciation to his countrymen that Alexander Hamilton, one of the United States founding fathers, published in the New York magazine The Stand on April the 7th, 1798. In fact, the terror in France was just over. Sometimes we fail to appreciate the horrific profundity of this term, terror, whose political use was precisely inaugurated by the French Revolution. It is the idea of controlling the lives of people by instilling in them a daily measure of fear and a constant terror of terror itself, literally a hellish condition. Now, the UN was founded because the cup of human sufferance was full to the brim. Allow me again to draw a parallel now with Teichmann, deriving its spiritual tone from ancient teachings rooted in Chinese culture. The compassionate attitude of Teichmann toward human beings and all living entities is one that suffers when it sees people suffer. It acts for their relief both spiritually and, when possible, materially, as it is testified by the numerous volunteer activities of Teichmann Dizzy in situations of crisis, including earthquakes and other national disasters. The source of the noble intent of both the UN and Teichmann can be summarized in a word that surely belongs to Kant and the Kantian vocabulary and has a distinguished tradition in modern Western philosophical tradition: tolerance. Tolerance is difficult to define. It is easier to say what it is not. It is not the world of conflicts, unrest, violence, discrimination, and death that humankind often lives in. It is a paradox that Kant, a critic of the French Revolution, was at the same time one of the chief exponents of the Enlightenment philosophy, from which the revolution and its violent Jacobin wing claimed they drew inspiration. This paradox sparkled and continues to nourish the debate on how much the Enlightenment philosophy truly influenced the French Revolution. I leave the topic to other reflection. For the sake of today's argument, though, I just note that to caution that kind intentions are not enough, it is not necessary to go to the unpolite extreme of saying that the road to hell is paved with good intention. My point is that as the UN's goals are noble, their implementation has often been and remains poor. The UN has been and is weak in moments and places when strength was and is needed. Several of its resolutions remain just on paper. Signs of serious ideological bias multiply. Its upheld notion of human rights is so undefined to let tyrants free to roam. Its upheld notion of human dignity is so vague to allow nasty abuses. It ignores many people at the extent that the counterpoint organization, the Unrepresented Nation and People Organization, UNPO, was conceived in the late 1980s by exiled leaders of people living under communist oppression to be formally established in Brussels, Belgium in 1991. Totalitarian regimes are condemned by the UN, even permitted to paralyze its Security Council through their veto powers. In one word, the main institution in the world promoting tolerance often tolerates evil. I had the opportunity in previous Taizhimen events to address the philosophical and semantical flows of the word tolerance, defining it as the fashionable sentiment of admitting to society those that we love. But I want to be clear. Intentions and possible shortcomings in realization must always be considered separately. We owe this fundamental charity to human heart. This does not automatically mean that all intentions are good, but it leads us all to cultivate a far nobler concept than mere toleration, and that is respect. On this UN Day of Observance dedicated to tolerance, we conclude with more questions than answers. At least I do. Taiwan is not part of the UN, and this is more problem than a solution. However, it is not a good reason for the UN to say that what happens in Taiwan is not its business. It would be tantamount to affirm that toleration only works intermittently. It is here that the parallel citizens' diplomacy of Taizhimen has something precious to say. Perhaps Taizhimen's global effort to build true respect among people, rooted in the feeling of suffering when we see people suffer, may prove better in securing peace than the UN's current concept of tolerance, which was remotely inspired and more recently born out of the disgusting spectacle of human horrors. This may be true, and Taizhimen's efforts may succeed under one condition. The Taiwanese government must immediately adopt a political solution for the Taizhimen case after all levels of Taiwanese justice repeatedly ruled that Taizhimen is not guilty of any crime. This would be real respect and also genuine tolerance, if you want to say so. And with this, I conclude and I thank you for your attention. And I ask you to watch to our final video.
Here is the Pasadena Civic Auditorium, the venue for the Emmy Awards ceremony. The internationally renowned Taiji-Men Cultural Goodwill Group performs Cultural Gems, Love and Prayers for the World here on October 15th, creating a sensation and receiving a warm response from the local audience. Taiji-Men, originated from over 6,000 years ago, combines martial arts, dance, and modern technology into its captivating cultural performance. It drew participants from around the world, leaving the on-site audience in awe and earning continuous applause.
The performances have been stunning, absolutely stunning. And the fact that it's all volunteers and the people have all come on their own accord to come perform is just amazing. The whole message of conscience and peace and love is so important. It's something we portray also, we embrace in our religion also. So it's like really heartwarming to see so many other people embracing it and spreading it.
It's amazing, unbelievable, and the main thing for me is that we need to have conscience to be better in the world. There is so much hate, and we need to understand each other, give more love and understanding, and be humankind.
I've been in the US for more than a decade from studying here, and then I started my family here, so it's been more than a decade or two. And I've seen performances from Taiwan dozens of times, at different venues. Sometimes in New York, and in Los Angeles, but this one is the best. I've just seen you perform in various countries around the world. You can do a lot of things in diplomacy on one hand. And on the other hand, you can promote the basic spirit of our Chinese culture, which is very good.
In today's world with pervasive uncertainty and various crises, people are filled with anxiety and fear. Dr. Hong, the Grandmaster of Taiji Men, emphasized in his speech that the heart is the foundation, and cultivating a kind heart is essential for a state of holistic health and well-being.
心为身心灵的主宰，气是万物的精髓，由内到外的影响着我们的生命状态。面对不平安、不快乐的现实，人人都需要健康的身心灵来因应大环境的急速变化。因此，养好气，练好心，能够帮助自己拥有全方位的健康人生。
Former President of Trinidad and Tobago, Anthony Carmona, as well as numerous distinguished guests and international human rights scholars and experts from around the world, came to attend this cultural extravaganza.
Ah, Lord, it was so exhilarating, so phenomenal, you know, and what I found remarkable was the talent exhibited. And when you consider that the majority of persons on that stage are not professionals, they are voluntary persons who came from afar and performed with such excellence, you know. So, you know, it has to do to a large extent with the passion and the particular holistic environment they find themselves in, because you know, when you have positivity around you, it generates excellence, it generates performance.
I was invited to this wonderful show because of the grand opening of the Taiji Men Qigong Academy in Pasadena. I think they've been a wonderful community partner already. They've come to several of our community events, and they've put on an absolutely stunning performance showing the traditions of China, the wonderful, colorful pageantry, but also the key values that is at the bottom of the Qigong tradition, which is kindness and compassion, love, and unity.
Culture represents the essence of human wisdom and is a precious treasure. The Taiji Men Cultural Goodwill Group has brought Taiji culture to California. Through the exchange of Eastern and Western cultures, they hope to plant the seeds of conscience, love, and peace deep within the hearts of everyone, fostering a sustainable and peaceful future. Frank Lin, Lydia Chine, Pasadena, California.